A lot to cover today, so what we're going to do, we're going to briefly look at the silver dough, and then we're going to skip a bunch. We're going to talk about Shell Cottage, Battle of Hogwarts briefly, The Prince's Tale briefly, King's Cross, and The Flaw in the Plan. So, we left off the other day, and it was Christmas, or a few days after Christmas, and Harry's feeling empty. He has nothing to live for. His wand's destroyed. He has seen his parents' graves. He doesn't understand, the biblical verse on his parents' grave. He doesn't understand the verse on the Dumbledore grave. He doesn't understand why Dumbledore never told him about this connection he and Harry shared with Godric's Hollow. He doesn't understand anything. He feels, as he puts it, insignificant, like an insect to the universe. Right? Then we get to chapter The Silver Dough. It's a few days now after Christmas. They've gone somewhere else. And Harry is sitting at the entrance to the tent, looking out. Nighttime, and he sees a light, a bright silver light out ahead of him. This is a couple pages into the chapter. And so he kind of stares, and then the source of the light comes out from behind the trees, an oak tree, and he sees it's a doe, a silver white doe. It's not a real doe, obviously, because real does aren't silver white. The doe comes towards him, and Harry feels an affinity. He feels a connection with this doe. Okay? He also feels like he'd been waiting for her to come. He follows the doe, and one thing he notices, the doe doesn't leave tracks in the snow. Okay, it's kind of like we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. So he follows it. The doe leads him away from the tent, off into the dark forest, and then disappears. He is left alone in the dark forest. The tent is somewhere back there. He can't see it from where he is. So he's immediately filled with fear. He lights his wand, and he looks around. And what does he see? He sees a frozen pool of water. It's not big. It's not described as being big, at least. Okay. And on the top is a covering of ice that's cracked. It's been broken into, okay? Or the ice has been disturbed, but it is refrozen. So he looks at that, he points his wand down so that the beam of light shoots down at the ice, and underneath this layer of cracked ice, he sees something that looks like this. A great silver cross. Notice, that's the first description. Okay? His heart skipped into his mouth. He dropped to his knees at the pool's edge, angled the wand so as to flood the bottom of the pool with as much light as possible. So, he's now pointing that wand directly at the bottom. We're not told how deep it is, but this great silver cross is lying on the bottom. And he sees a glint of red. Deep red. Dot, dot, dot. It's no longer a great silver cross. It's now a sword with glittering rubies in the handle. Harry has seen a sword like that before. He immediately knows. This is the sword of Godric Gryffindor. He's already heard Luna, Neville, and Ginny tried to steal the sword of Godric Gryffindor from Snape's office. Griphook says it was a fake. Okay? This is a few days after Christmas. So he's standing there, he's looking down, and he's thinking, how do I get the sword out? Oxio sword doesn't move. Notice, what kind of approach is that? That's the easy way. What does Harry not want to have to do? All right. I always mention this in my classes, and I have no idea if J.K. Rowling knows of this tradition. I'm positive she does. I don't have proof. In the Orthodox Church, on what's called the Feast of Epiphany, which is January 6th, notice, a few days after Christmas, which is when this occurs, you have a ritual called the Great Blessing of the Waters, okay? And where the priest goes out and, does a bunch of prayers, people sing hymns, etc., etc. And in every Orthodox tradition, Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, Bulgarian, or whatever, okay, there is a tradition of taking a cross and throwing it out into the water. And then people jump into the water to go out and retrieve the cross. It's especially cool in places like Russia, where they have to cut through the ice in order to throw the cross out there. Okay? It's a lot different between doing it in Russia and doing it on the coast of Greece, the Aegean Sea, which is 85 degrees during January. Or Tarpon Springs, Florida, a Greek community, okay, which is, the Gulf's about 72. Pretty nice water. What's Harry doing? He's retrieving the cross from the pond a few days after Christmas. Again, we're not told exactly how few. So, Oxio's sword doesn't work. He sits here and help. Why does he say help? Is he thinking Fox is going to bring him, the sorting hat or something? Don't know. Only a true Gryffindor could have pulled that out of the hat. He remembers Dumbledore saying. So, he looks around. He's by himself. What are his options?
He's got to go in.
Go in, or what's another option? Leave it. That's it. Go in or leave it. He needs the sword of Gryffindor. He knows what it can do. What can it do?
But can't he leave it, but go get Hermione and come back?
It can kill Horcruxes. Okay. So, he cracks the ice with his wand. And as far as Harry could judge, it was not deep, but to retrieve the sword, he would have to submerge himself completely. That is, it's not like it's 20 or 30 feet deep, but maybe it's like 6 feet deep. So that he can go in and he can stand. Because notice what happens. He jumps into the pond or pool. Every pore of his body screamed in protest. The very air in his lungs seemed to freeze, solid, as he was submerged to his shoulders in the frozen water. He jumps in, feet are on the ground, bottom of the pool, okay, and the water is up to his shoulders. This is going to be kind of odd in just a moment. So, sword is down there, however. Now, if I'm Harry, here's what I'm doing. I'm reaching around with my foot, trying to see if I can hook my toe under the hilt to bring it up like that. Because I do not want to get this down under freezing water. It's bad enough that the rest of me is freezing. The head hits the water, it's a whole other game. He put off the moment of total submersion from second to second, gasping, shaking, till he told himself it must be done. Gathered all his courage and dived. I don't know why she says he dived, but I think all she means is he does this. It's not like he's standing on, like the sword is like this, and Harry's standing here and he's got to go down a shelf, so to speak. Cold was agony. It attacked him like fire. Brain seemed to have frozen, and he's groping for the sword. He finally finds it. He pulls it upwards. Okay. As soon as he pulls the sword off the ground, the chain around his neck goes, and starts to choke him. Why?
Because he's trying to get away.
Yeah. Voldemort, Gryffindor. They don't mix, ice and water and oil kind of a thing. He thought of water weeds, though nothing had brushed him as he died, and raised his empty hand to free himself. It was not weed, the chain of the Horcrux had tightened. Harry kicked out wildly, trying to push himself back to the surface, but merely propelled himself into the side of the pool. He kicks against here. So he goes this way, rather than, what did he really need to do? Just stand up. But could he? We're not told specifically that he couldn't, but we are told the Horcrux around his neck is choking him. Might the Horcrux also be acting like the ring does on its necklace around Frodo's neck?
Poisoned him.
It pulls him down. It's like a heavy weight. Thrashing, suffocating, he scrabbled at the strangling chain. If you've ever been in a situation similar to this, I don't mean like this, because none of us have ever had a Horcrux around our neck, and we've been in a freezing pool of water, January 4th or 5th. But if you've been in the ocean and a riptide has caught you, even if you're only in water that's 4 or 5 feet deep, what can it do? It disorients you. What does that word orient mean?
You can't find your bearings.
Literally, it means you can't find east. East is the orient. So when you orient yourself, literally what you're doing is you're finding a set direction. Okay? Harry couldn't do that. Why? He's not thinking right. If you're in that kind of situation, if you're in a riptide or an undertow and you've been pulled under,
Panic.
everything goes crazy. Panic sets in. Okay? And now little lights are starting to pop inside his head. Why? Neurons are firing. He's drowning. His brain is suffering from oxygen deprivation.
Really
Okay.
cold.
And he's freezing.
That jacks with you every time.
But somebody pulls him up. And notice the term that the narrator uses to describe what Harry is thinking. Harry had no strength to lift his head and see his savior's identity. Not rescuers, not guardians, not protectors, not patronuses, saviors. Are you mental? And as soon as we hear that word mental, we know who it is. Because there's only one person in all of the novels who uses that. It's Ron. Okay? Why the hell didn't you take this thing off before you dived? Good question. Why would he? Why should he even think about taking it off? Other than that, sort of Godric Gryffindor, Voldemort's soul. Okay? So, they use the sword to destroy the locket. You know, we don't get all the nonsense that we get in the movie, so we'll just leave all that alone. And we go on real quickly to the next chapter. I know I didn't say that we would include it, but I've got to. Xenophilius Lovegood. Why do they go to the Lovegoods?
To find out about the
Louder.
find out about the sign.
To find out about the symbol. Xenophilius had that symbol on his bright yellow cloak that he wore to the wedding. Okay? So what does he tell them?
It's for the Deathly Hallows.
It's the sign of the Deathly Hallows. Okay? And the Deathly Hallows is what?
The invisibility part.
Cloak,
The wand and the
stone, wand. Cloak of invisibility, stone of resurrection. What word do you want to use here?
The death
Power.
stick.
It's called the Death Stick.
Wand of destiny.
It's called the Wand of Destiny. It's called the Elder Wand. Elder meaning, in this context, yeah, the oldest. Not eldest, but Okay? But what else is this? I mean, it is these things, but what else is it used for? He says. Think of this.
Oh, for other believers.
It's a sign for other believers of the deathly hallows. Okay? So, he talks to them, next chapter, about the tale of the three brothers. Who knows the tale? Does Harry? No. Why? Because he's never read anything, really, in terms of textbooks or even children's literature in the wizarding world. Ron? Yes. He grew up reading things like the Tales of Beedle the Bard. Okay? Hermione?
She read the book Dumbledore gave her.
She read it because Dumbledore gave it to her. Does she understand the tale of the three brothers? No. Does she believe the tale of the three brothers?
No.
No. Why not?
It's a fairy story.
Because it's a fairy tale.
It's a children's book.
It's a children's book. See, Hermione has been, I really shouldn't go here because I'll get so off topic. Hermione has been properly educated. What kind of stuff does she read?
Nonfiction.
Nonfiction. Just posted an article to Facebook the other day for my friends on Facebook about why schools aren't teaching literature anymore. It's because, largely, literature raises too many questions. But if you read books that are nonfiction, just facts and knowledge, okay, it's also a lot easier to teach and it's a lot easier to examine over, okay? So, Hermione says, well, this can't be real. None of this can be real. This is a couple of pages after the story of the three brothers. She says, the thing you call the resurrection stone. Well, what of it? How can that be real? Prove that it is not.
Yeah.
But how can I possibly prove it doesn't exist? Do you expect me to get hold of all the pebbles in the world? I mean, you could claim that anything's real if the only basis for believing in it is that nobody's proved it doesn't exist. And he says, I'm glad to see you're starting to open your mind a little bit. Okay, so why does Rowling include that? Is she really talking about a resurrection stone? What's she talking about, Eden?
Talking about proving that God exists.
Yeah. She's talking about faith. You can't say that something doesn't exist simply by saying it doesn't exist. What must you do? You must prove that it doesn't exist. How do you prove that something doesn't exist? According to Aristotle, you start looking. You go around and you look at everything. Okay? Harry, okay, so the elder one, it exists too? They already know this exists, right? Go back. Just one page. Hermione says, well, I mean, yeah, everybody knows invisibility cloaks are real. He's like, but hold on a second.
There's only one.
We're talking about a cloak that really and truly renders the wearer completely invisible and endures eternally. See, the two that Magi had don't endure eternally, giving constant and impenetrable concealment. Isn't there a problem there?
Can the mentor see?
No, but somebody can. Magi sees through the invisibility cloak. Anybody else? Dumbledore sees through the invisibility cloak. Dumbledore tells Harry, the third night Harry goes back to look at the mirror of Erised, I don't need a cloak of invisibility to make myself invisible. Harry comes, sits down in front of the mirror. Ah, back again, Harry. If the invisibility cloak is what is described at here, okay, nobody should be able to see through it.
One of flaws in the story?
Yeah. Because when she creates that in the first story, she hasn't worked these details out. And when she writes, I think, when she writes this book, she doesn't go back and make sure or doesn't write it in such a way that it equates with what is said earlier. Okay? So, he starts to talk about the three brothers and mentions their name. Peveril. And Hermione's like, Harry, yeah, I know. The grave. Where? Godric's Hollow. It's like everything begins at Godric's Hollow. Okay? So they keep talking about the tale, page 414. And Hermione says, well, it's just a morality tale. It's obvious which gift is the best, which one you choose. And Harry, Ron, and Hermione each speak simultaneously. Hermione chooses which one? Cloak of invisibility. Harry chooses which one? The stone. Ron chooses the elder one. Why? Why does each choose the one they choose?
Harry
What?
chooses the stone because he lives his family.
Harry chooses the stone because he wants his family back.
Hermione chooses the logical one,
Why is this the logical one?
because it's the one that works out best in the story.
Because it opens up the possibilities for new learnings and to.
I don't really know why she picked that one. Honestly.
Okay, let's go on to the elder one for a moment. Why does Ron choose that?
He's always been second fiddle to the rest of
Glory,
the
man. Give some power. Okay? Think of invisibility by another name. What are you if you're invisible?
Transparent,
What else?
free.
I mean, if you write a novel but you don't give your name, you don't put by transparent. Anonymous. You're anonymous. How anonymous is Hermione at Hogwarts?
She's not.
Why is she not anonymous?
She's always got her hand.
Because she answers the questions. Everybody knows her. Okay? I think that's why she chooses this. Could be wrong. Okay? So they find out the Elder Wand is real, but you don't have to receive the Elder Wand by killing the previous owner of it. You just have to defeat them. Okay? So, next chapter, real quickly. Hermione, second page, says, I don't suppose it matters, even if he was being honest. I've never heard such a lot of nonsense in all my life. Load of nonsense. Ron, hang on though. Chamber of Secrets was supposed to be a myth too. Was it? No, it was very real. Okay? Hermione, but the Deathly Hallows can't exist, Ron. Ron, you keep saying that. It's like, yeah, you keep using that word. I don't think that word means what you think it means. The Tale of the Three Brothers is a story about how humans are frightened of death, says Hermione. If surviving was as simple as hiding under the invisibility cloak, we'd have everything we need already. He says, I don't know. Harry says, I don't know. With an unbeatable wand. Okay? And what does Harry remember? When my wand connected with Voldemort's, what happened?
It started shooting us.
Mom and Dad appeared. Cedric even came out. Hermione, but they weren't really back from the dead, were they, Harry? In other words, they didn't come out flesh and blood. Right? Harry, but neither did the girl in the tale. She wasn't really resurrected, but she came back and she lived with her brother for a while. Harry's starting to think. And Harry puts together how all this relates to Voldemort. Marvolo Gaunt, Harry says. When I was in the Pensive with Dumbledore, Marvolo Gaunt said he was descended from the Peverils. And then he says, the ring. the ring that became the Horcrux. Marvolo Gaunt said it had the Peveril coat of arms on it. I saw him waving it up and down. Okay? Harry says, all I noticed was that there were some scratches on it. What were the scratches on the ring? Probably this. Okay? So, they keep talking, and Harry comes to this conclusion. I mean, he's thinking about all of this. He's thinking about the snitch. I open at the close. What does that mean? I've skipped over several more pages. Probably, I don't know, 435, 4, something like that. And Harry's thinking, Hermione wouldn't like my thinking like this. But Hermione did not believe. Does Harry now believe? He's thinking about Luna having been caught. And skipping a few paragraphs. Paragraph that begins, they packed up the tent next morning, moved on through a dreary shower of rain. Right in the middle of that paragraph. Harry's concentrating on the Deathly Hallows. It was as though a flame had been lit inside him that nothing, not Hermione's flat disbelief, nor Ron's persistent doubts could extinguish. Notice, Harry now believes. Hermione has flat disbelief. She's an atheist. She's not an agnostic. Ron has doubts. Doubts is not the same as disbelief. Okay? Harry's thinking, the last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. And he's equating that with the Elder Wand. Notice the Elder Wand doesn't destroy death. What does it do? It makes you master of death. Actually, having all three of these makes you master of death. Okay? They listen to Potter Watch on the wireless, and they hear some voices of old friends. We hear Lupin. We hear Kingsley Shacklebolt. Okay? And we hear Lupin say, actually, Kingsley, when we find out, humans are being attacked, Kingsley says, page 440, Muggles remain ignorant of the source of their suffering as they continue to sustain heavy casualties. Why do they remain ignorant of the source of their suffering? Because it's coming from the wizarding world. Okay? It's that spiritual world that I've talked about. And then he goes on and says, when Lee Jordan asks, and what would you say, Royal, to those listeners who reply that in these dangerous times, it should be wizards first? Replace wizards with Americans. It should be Americans first. What does Royal say? It's one short step from wizards first to purebloods first and then to Death Eaters. We're all human, aren't we? Every human life is worth the same and worth saving. That's why he becomes Minister of Magic. Lupin then chimes in. The boy who lived remains a symbol of everything for which we are fighting. The triumph of good, the power of innocence, the need to keep resisting. And then Lee says, and what would you say to the boy who lived, if you could say something? I'd tell him we're all with him in spirit, and I'd tell him to follow his instincts, which are good and nearly always right. Why nearly always?
Because nobody's perfect.
Maybe you shouldn't have called me coward, but you were right about sending me back to Tonks. Okay? And what happens? They get captured. Okay? They get taken to Malfoy Manor. Hermione, just before they get captured, puts a spell on Harry so that he doesn't look like himself. They get taken to Malfoy Manor, and notice Lucius Malfoy is full of glee. He's thinking, my name will be restored, my good graces with the Lord Voldemort will be restored, etc. What are Draco and Narcissa thinking?
Uh-oh.
How do we get out of this alive? Okay. So they take Harry to Draco. Draco gives Harry a good, close looking over. We're never told whether or not Draco actually recognizes Harry. I mean, we know he says, I don't know. We don't know that that's actually what he thinks. Just hunch. What do you think? Does Draco know it's Harry?
Probably.
I think he does. I think it's a no-brainer that he knows this is Harry. Why?
But it's with Ron and Hermione.
That's it. He's with Ron. Who else would be with Ron and Hermione? Off in the forest somewhere. Can't be Neville. Can't be Ginny. Can't be Luna. What other close friends does Harry have? None. Okay? It's got to be him. But don't know for sure. So what are they going to do? Well, let's torture it out of Hermione, Bellatrix says. Okay? So Harry and Ron get taken downstairs to the basement while Bellatrix is going to be like a cat with a mouse. You know, she's going to have a little fun. Ron offers himself, take me instead. Okay? And when they go down to the basement, who do they meet? Who all is there? Luna's there. Griphook's there. Okay? Dean Thomas is there. Dobby shows up. And Peter Pettigrew then comes in, grabs Harry around the throat with the silver hand, and Harry says, "You're going to kill me? After I saved your life, Wormtail? You owe me!" And for a moment, Wormtail's hand loosens. It loosens just enough for Harry to get away from him. Why does his hand loosen?
He owes it to Harry.
It's a moment of pity. It's a moment of mercy. Harry, finding himself free, is astonished. Why? Because he sees Wormtail's eyes get really big as the hand does what?
It turns around on him.
Okay. Goes to Wormtail. Notice, Harry and Ron try to save Wormtail, but they can't. Why not? So one of my students pointed this out the other day. I don't remember if I'd ever made the connection before. When Wormtail goes back to Voldemort, beginning of book 4, okay, Voldemort says, "You've only returned out of fear." But he also says, "You will never betray me again."
So was the hand like when he gave it to Wormtail? Was it?
Cursed, so that if he ever betrays him again,
It'll.
it'll possibly. Okay. So, Dobby comes in. Dobby, pops the others back and forth to Shell Cottage. And he comes for Harry last. And as Harry sees them leaving Malfoy Manor, he sees Bellatrix throw a knife. And that knife is a blur of silver through the air. They land at Shell Cottage, into the chapter. Harry falls to his knees, tries to lower Griphook gently to the ground. Okay? And he looks at Dobby. "Dobby!" Dobby's kind of swaying. "No, help, help." Why? Because he sees the silver hilt protruding from Dobby's chest as a blood stain starts to spread. He did not know or care whether they were wizards or muggles, friends or foes. All he cared about was that a dark stain was spreading across Dobby's front, and that he had stretched out his thin arms to Harry with a look of supplication. What does supplication mean?
To ask for something.
Prayer. Dobby's like, "Help me." He doesn't say anything other than, "Harry," plop, and dies. Next chapter. Why does Harry bury Dobby by hand?
Because he cared about Dobby.
Okay.
Well, he's not like insignificant. He didn't take the easy route. He took the hard route.
It's the proper.
Bottom of the first page. Harry knows what's going on at Malfoy Manor. Voldemort got there. He got there just a minute too late, however. And people at Malfoy Manor are being punished. Voldemort's rage, we're told, is dreadful. But Harry's grief for Dobby diminishes it, so that it became a distant storm that reached Harry from across a vast, silent ocean. Harry, I want to do it properly, not by magic. Have you got a spade? Okay. I want to do it properly, not by magic. What was magic unable to do?
Save him.
Doesn't solve all your problems.
Doesn't solve all your problems. So, Harry starts digging the grave. He dug with a kind of fury, relishing the manual work. Why relishing it?
Just-
Harry's done manual work before. He had to do it at the Dursleys. Dudley never did. It emphasizes his humanity. What did Dumbledore say at the end of Book 5? Harry, it's pain like this that makes you human. He dug with a kind of fury, relishing the manual work, glorying in the non-magic of it. For every drop of his sweat and every blister felt like a gift to the elf who had saved their lives. Notice, Dobby used all his magic that he had to save their lives, lost his own. Harry's using all his what?
Non-magic.
All his non-magic, all his humanity, all his strength, okay, as a way of repaying that gift to Dobby. Notice what's going on in his mind while he's digging. His scar burned, but he was master of the pain. He felt it, yet was apart from it. What has Harry finally learned? Occlumency. He can shut Voldemort out. He had learned control at last. It's not actually occlumency, it's control. He can control his pain. That'd be pretty nice, right? He had learned to shut his mind to Voldemort, the very thing Dumbledore had wanted him to learn from Snape. What does it take for Harry to do that? Grief. The greatest grief one can experience, the loss of a loved one. Just as Voldemort had not been able to possess Harry, while Harry thought it was serious, what? He could not penetrate Harry now, while he mourned Dobby. Grief, it seemed, drove Voldemort out. Though Harry now realized, Dumbledore, of course, would say, it's not grief, it's love. Harry digs deeper and deeper into the ground. What else is he digging deeper and deeper into?
His feelings.
Is it his feelings? It's himself. Okay? He's turning inward. Subsuming his grief in sweat, denying the pain in his scar. And what happens? While he turns inward, while he digs deeper and deeper and deeper into himself, understanding. Christ said, seek ye first the kingdom of God. Where? Inside. Not out there. It's not, you're going to build it out here. You're going to make everybody be perfect and loving. No, it's inside. Hallows, Horcruxes, Hallows, Horcruxes. Deeper and deeper, Harry sank into the grave. How's that for imagery? Because he's got to do what? He's got to come back out of the grave. This is kind of like a death, rebirth. Okay? And what happens? He knows where Voldemort had been tonight. He knew whom he had killed in that topmost cell of Nurmengard. And he thinks of Wormtail, and he thinks, and Dumbledore understood that too. Okay? They put Dobby in the ground, but what do they do first?
It closes eyes.
Harry wraps him in his jacket. Ron takes off his shoes and socks, puts those on Dobby. Dean Thomas takes a hat, puts that on Dobby. Why? Here lies a free elf. Free how? Free of pain, free of suffering, free of agony. Okay? Free of limitation. So Luna says some nice words to Dobby, so does Dean, thanks, etc. Meanwhile, Harry's thinking of all those ideas that came to his mind. Okay? He tells Bill, I need to speak to Griphook. And we're told Dobby would never be able to tell them who had sent him to the cellar. But Harry knew what he had seen. Bright blue eye in that fragment of glass. He looks out over the ocean and he feels closer this dawn than ever before, closer to the heart of it all. Heart of what all? Closer to what? I mean, that's a question. What is Harry talking about? His instinct, okay, tells him to do one thing. His heart tells him to do something else. What's Voldemort doing at this very moment that Harry is aware of? He's making his way to Hogwarts. What does Harry do? He stands still. What does Harry know Voldemort is about to do? He's going to desecrate Dumbledore's tomb. He's going to break it open and do what? He's going to pry that wand from his cold, hard, dead fingers. All right? And Harry does what? Nothing. Nothing. Okay? He tells Ron, towards the end of that chapter, after he speaks with Griphook and Ollivander, okay, he tells Ron and Hermione where Voldemort is. Last couple pages. Ron asks, where's the wand now? Harry at Hogwarts. Well, let's go get it, Ron says. Harry, it's too late. He knows where it is. He's there now. Well, how long have you known this? Why have we been wasting time? Why did you talk to Griphook? Well, we could have gone. Harry, no. What does he do? He sinks to his knees in the grass. Why? Physical stance is important. What's that a sign of? He falls to his knees. Submission to what? Dumbledore's plan, possibly? What else is it a sign of?
What's going to happen?
No.
Acceptance.
It's humility. It's humility. Notice what Harry doesn't do. He doesn't go after the wand. Everything within him says, go get the wand. But he is humble. Okay? He thinks, Dumbledore wants me to get the Horcruxes. The Horcruxes are what's important. Shell Cottage. Second paragraph. The enormity of his decision not to race Voldemort to the wand still scared Harry. He could not remember ever before choosing not to act. Where in any of the previous 6 books does Harry not act? He saves everybody in books 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. He can't save Dumbledore in book 6, but he tries. Skipping a couple paragraphs. Notice he's now trusting in Dumbledore. He felt that he was still groping in the dark. He had chosen his path, but kept looking back, wondering whether he'd misread the signs, or whether he should not have taken the other way. Can't help but think that she's thinking of, J.K. Rowling is thinking of Robert Frost's The Road Less Traveled with that passage. Okay? So, go on to, we're going to skip Gringotts. They break into Bellatrix's vault and they get the cup. We get the final hiding place, which we're going to skip. The missing mirror, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, Luna, and others go back to Hogsmeade. They're on their way to Hogwarts. They get rescued by Aberforth. Okay? What kind of advice does Aberforth give them? Especially Harry.
Give up.
Does he say give up? Turn yourself over to Voldemort? He's already won? No, that's not what he says. He says save yourself. The war is lost. Okay? And Harry says, no. Aberforth, probably around 560, 562, something like that. He says, let it go, boy, before you follow him. Save yourself. Okay? Next page, Harry's thinking. And he thinks he had made his choice while he dug Dobby's grave. He had decided to continue along the winding, dangerous path indicated for him by Albus Dumbledore. To accept that he'd not been told everything that he wanted to know, but simply to trust. Notice, now he believes. Notice, he doesn't know everything he wants to know. He still feels like he's groping in the dark, but he's trusting Dumbledore. Okay? They go on and they talk about what happened all those years ago at the Dumbledore household. Okay? That separated Dumbledore from Grindelwald. The battle that they got into, what happened to Ariana, and Harry says he never forgot. Because Aberforth says, he forgot all about it and he went off and became powerful and famous, blah, blah, blah. Harry says he never forgot. He said when he drank that potion, he was reliving it all the time. Okay? So Aberforth says, well, why didn't Dumbledore tell you to hide? Why didn't he tell you to save your skin? Because, said Harry, before Hermione could answer, sometimes you got to think about more than your own safety. Sometimes you got to think about the greater good. Notice, Dumbledore at 17 was interested in the greater good. Harry at 17 is willing to sacrifice himself for the greater good. They understand it differently. Okay? And then we see other people Dumbledore's army start to come through the mirror and all that. Okay, we get the lost item, which we have to skip. We see Snape get sacked. One real brief comment here, a couple pages in. We see McGonagall stand up, face up to the two Caro twins. Nasty pieces of work as they are. When Amika says we can blame what's happened on the kids, Hogwarts students. A couple of kids more or less. What's the difference? McGonagall. Only the difference between truth and lies, courage and cowardice. I shall not permit it. Amicus moves towards her. Excuse me. It's not a case of what you'll permit, Minerva McGonagall. It's us what's in charge here now. You'll back me up or you'll pay the price. And he spits in her face. Harry pulls his cloak off. You shouldn't have done that. Crucio. The Death Eater was lifted off his feet. He writhed through the air like a drowning man, thrashing, howling in pain. And then with a crunch and a shattering of glass, he smashed into the front of a bookcase and crumpled, insensible to the floor. Harry, I see what Bellatrix meant. You need to really mean it. Potter, that was foolish. He spat at you. That was very gallant of you, Potter, but don't you realize? Okay. He is a Gryffindor after all. Harry, yeah, I realize. Voldemort's on the way. What's he saying?
Be prepared.
I'm taking my stand. This is where it all comes down to. This is where Voldemort felt most at home. This is where Harry felt most at home. Okay? Skip a bunch. We get the Battle of Hogwarts. And Harry finally understands why the Bloody Baron is so bloody and why he wears the chains.
Wait, why? What was that section? Why is Bloody Baron so bloody?
Why is the Bloody Baron so bloody?
He killed Romeo. Oh, okay, yeah, that's right.
And he wears his chains as a mark of penance. Even though he's a ghost, so it doesn't do him any good, you know. Very last page, very last paragraph of that chapter. What is Mrs. Weasley's greatest fear?
Her children dying.
No, 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 someone was shouting. No, Fred, no. And Percy was shaking his brother, and Ron was kneeling beside them. And Fred's eyes stared without seeing the ghost of his last laugh still etched upon his face. Very next page, the world had ended. So why had the battle not ceased? Why does she write the world had ended?
Because because everyone was dying.
No.
Fred died.
Okay, yeah, Fred died. A world without Fred Weasley, for Harry, is like a world I don't want to live in. Harry's mind was in free fall. Okay? Percy goes berserk. Harry hears Hermione scream. Okay? Go back there just a second. 5. Harry goes off, following Snape to Voldemort. And he watches this interview between Voldemort and Snape around page 655. Voldemort, I'm not going to go over all of this, but I'm going to hit it briefly. I've got a problem, Severus. My lord? What's his problem?
The wand doesn't work for him.
He says, my wand's not doing extraordinary magic. My lord, everything you've done tonight is extraordinary. He says, no. That's ordinary. It's just extraordinary to you because you're a lesser mortal than me. Okay? He says, there's a question, Severus. There is. Why did both the wands I have used fail when directed at Potter? I can't answer that, my lord. Can't you? Okay. And he keeps talking. He says, so I sought a third one, Severus, the Elder Wand, the Wand of Destiny, the Death Stick. I took it from its previous master. I took it from the grave of Albus Dumbledore. What does he assume?
That Snape is the one that just...
Well, yeah, but he also assumes that it should work.
Because he thinks if he takes it from the owner that it's his.
Yeah.
He's defeated them.
But now he goes on and he says, you were the one who killed Dumbledore. You defeated him. The Death Stick belongs to you unless I defeat you. The Elder Wand cannot serve me properly, Severus, because I am not its true master. The Elder Wand belongs to the wizard who killed its last owner. Wrong! It doesn't. You killed Albus Dumbledore. While you live, Severus, the Elder Wand cannot be truly mine. The Elder Wand belongs to the one who defeated Albus Dumbledore, who was?
Draco.
And Harry has since defeated Draco. Even though Draco didn't have the Elder Wand with him. Doesn't matter.
Still Draco.
The Elder Wand still knows. Okay? Wand chooses the wizard. So, he sicks Nagini on him. Harry reveals himself. Snape gives him the memory and says, "Look at me," and dies. Why?
He wanted
Show me the sign of respect. He wanted to see Lily's eyes as he died. That's why. Oh, isn't that sweet? Okay? The green eyes found the black. But after a second, something in the depths of the dark pair seemed to vanish, leaving them fixed, blank, and empty. The soul departs. So we get the Prince's Tale. Voldemort turns on the megaphone and he addresses the enemy. What does he say? "I give you 1 hour, Harry Potter. 1 hour. All these people have died." How does the book begin? Harry doesn't want anybody to die for him. All these people have died for you. You can stop the death. You can stop the carnage. You can stop the destruction. Turn yourself in. All right? Notice, you have permitted your friends to die for you rather than face me yourself. He's essentially saying you're a coward. All right? So, Harry runs up to Dumbledore's office. He finds the pensive. And it's like he goes all in Lily as little girls. And he sees the greasy-haired kid come in, Snape, and tell the one little girl, "You're a witch." She doesn't take it the way a girl would take it today, "You witch," okay? She kind of understands. And we live through all these memories. We see how close they become. And then we see, I don't need help from filthy little mudbloods like her. And we see that relationship come to an end. Okay? We go on. We see Snape helping Harry. We see Snape protecting Harry. We see Dumbledore talking with Snape. We see Snape plead to Dumbledore, "Don't ever tell him or anyone else." And Dumbledore says, my word that I shall never reveal the best of you." What does he mean by the best of you?
because
No, think before you speak. What does he mean by the best of you? What's the best of Snape?
His fondness for Harry and his family.
It's not fondness for Harry at all.
Over his mother, so it transcends that to Harry.
He sacrifices himself. He sacrifices his desires to do what? To protect Harry. To keep Harry alive. Okay? We see Dumbledore come back with the ring. We see him ask, "How long do I have?" Maybe a year. We see Dumbledore talk about Voldemort's soul being maimed. And we see Dumbledore ask Snape to kill him rather than Draco. And then finally we see Dumbledore say, "Voldemort must die and Harry must do it. And Voldemort and Harry must die. And Voldemort himself must do it, Severus. That is essential." And Snape says, "And for all these years we were keeping him alive? I thought we were keeping him alive for Lily. We've protected him because it has been essential to teach him, to raise him, to let him try his strength. You've kept him alive so that he can die at the right moment. His hour has not come, so to speak. Don't be shocked, Severus. How many men and women have you watched die? Lately, only those whom I could not save. What does he mean by lately? Who's he talking about? I think that's a specific reference. Charity Burbage, floating in the air above the Malfoy's dinner table at the beginning of this novel. He couldn't save her. Meaning, I've spied for you, lied for you, put myself in mortal danger for you. Everything was supposed to keep Lily Potter's son safe. Now you tell me you've been raising him like a pig for slaughter? This is touching, Severus. Have you grown to care for the boy after all? And the silver dough pops out of his wand.
Why does he respond that way?
Is it for Harry?
No, it's for the mother. It's for Lily.
Because he still loves Lily. Even though she's been dead all these years. Okay? So, the forest again. Harry understood at last that he was not supposed to survive. Neither can live while the other survives. Neither. Neither one of them can live while the other survives. Now, you can read that to mean A can't live while B lives. You can also read that to mean neither of them can live. A and B can't live while A or B lives. They both have to die. Along the way, he was to dispose of Voldemort's remaining links to life, so that when at last he flung himself across Voldemort's path, did not raise a wand to defend himself, the end would be clean. Neither would live, neither could survive. And Harry's thinking, ooh, this is going to take a different kind of courage and bravery while I walk to my death. Go back to book 6 when he has that realization. It was the difference between being dragged, kicking and screaming into an arena of the battle to the death, or walking in head held high. Why had he never appreciated what a miracle he was, brain and nerve and bounding heart? Remember that line after his wand is destroyed? He wakes up Christmas morning, he looks out over this beautiful horizon, and he thinks, or the narrator tells us, Harry could not appreciate the miracle of being alive. Okay. So, he walks on. He sees Neville. He says, hey, Neville, if you see the big snake, kill it for me. And as he keeps walking on, he goes by Ginny. Notice he doesn't give Ginny a goodbye kiss. He hears Ginny tell a girl tell Ginny, I want to go home. I don't want to fight anymore. Ginny, I know. It's going to be all right. She's lying through her teeth. She doesn't know it's going to be all right. And Harry thinks, as he keeps walking, he was home. Hogwarts was his home. He and Voldemort and Snape, the abandoned boys, had all found home here. He keeps walking. And he's thinking it's not so easy to die after all. Every second he walks, what's he become more and more aware of? The particulars of his surroundings, the smell of the grass, the cool air on his face. Why?
It's almost gone.
Because time is ticking down. And for a moment, or in a moment, he's not going to have that smell. He's not going to feel that cool air. And he makes his way, he gets to the edge of the forest, and he thinks, he reaches in his pocket, and there's the snitch. I open it to close. Well, this was the close. That is, stage lights are about to get shut off. He puts his mouth to it and says, I'm about to die. The shell breaks open, and there's the stone. Cracked down the vertical line representing the Elder Wand. But he could still make out the cloak and the circle. And Harry thinks, doesn't matter about them coming back. Why? Because I'm going to join them. He was not really fetching them, they were fetching him. He closed his eyes. He turned the stone over 3 times in his hand. Why? Did somebody tell him to? No, he just does. And who's there? Mom, Dad, Remus, and Sirius. Notice, Lily's smile was wide. Lupin and Sirius are young again. They don't look worn and haggard and tired out. Why? Because they're resurrected. This is them in their primes. Okay? James says, you're nearly there, very close. We're so proud of you. You're nearly there. You're nearly where?
Dead.
Nearly dead? Nearly in the forest? Nearly meeting Voldemort? So what is James aware of?
Surroundings.
Keep going.
What's been happening?
What's been happening, perfect use of verb, and what's going to happen. In other words, they're really here. They're really alive here. Not flesh and blood alive, but sentient alive. This is not some mere hallucination on Harry's part. Okay? Quicker, Harry asked, does it hurt? Dying? Not at all, says Sirius. Quicker and easier than falling asleep. That's a line, by the way, from A Holy Sonnet by John Donne. Lupin, and he'll want it to be quick. He wants it over. Again, who's he talking about? Voldemort. Harry, I didn't want you to die. I think he's talking specifically to Lupin. I didn't chase you out of Grimmauld Place because I wanted you to die. Remus, I'm sorry. I am sorry too, says Lupin. I always get choked up at this. Sorry, I will never know him. Whom? His son. Notice, the series opens with a boy becoming an orphan. The series ends with an orphan. Okay? Harry walks in, sees Voldemort. Voldemort curses him. King's Cross. He lay face down, listening to the sirens, perfectly alone, nobody watching, nobody there. Time passes, or maybe it doesn't. He's not really sure, because he's not sure if he exists. And almost as soon as he had reached this conclusion, he's aware he's naked. And because he's aware he's naked, he doesn't like being aware that he's naked. And so what happens? He's immediately clothed. Notice, does he put clothing on? No. He lay in a bright mist, but not like a mist he had experienced before. He sits up, and there's nothing there. Nothing appears. His body appeared unscathed. He touches his face. No glasses. And what else? No scar. Why?
He's reborn.
Because he's resurrected. Okay? And he sees perfectly. But as he looks around, he's wondering, is this like a room of requirement? And the place kind of starts to take shape. It looks like a palace. No, it looks like King's Cross. And he hears a whimpering. And he turns and he looks. And small and fragile and wounded though it was, he did not want to approach it. Its skin, raw and rough, flayed looking. It lay shuddering under a seat where it had been left, unwanted, stuffed out of sight, struggling for breath. What is this? Which piece? Is this the one that was in Harry? Okay. You cannot help. Even though Dumbledore says you cannot help, Harry still wants to help. Okay? Harry, you're dead. Yes. Then I'm dead too. I think not. Not on the whole. Not. But I died. I didn't defend myself. I meant to let him kill me. And that, says Dumbledore, will, I think, have made all the difference. Why? He offered himself as a sacrifice for whom?
Everybody.
For everybody. Is everybody just the wizarding world? No, it's not.
Do you think she was coming back to Robert Frost here?
Yes. And that will have made all the difference? Oh, yeah. Yeah. In that poem, The Road Less Traveled, it's, when you find yourself down at the end of that road, ages and ages hence, you will have learned that by taking that path made all the difference, it says at the end. Okay? So, Harry asks, what is that? Something that is beyond either of our help. Okay? Harry says, so how can I be alive? So Dumbledore explains, your blood in Voldemort. Okay? Dumbledore explains why he wasn't worthy to have power. And he tells Harry, you are the true master of death. Why? Because the true master does not seek to run away from death. He accepts that he must die and understands that there are far, far worse things in the living world than dying. I've never included this as a test question. I ought to. What is far, far worse than dying in this living world?
To live without love.
To live without love,
Friendship,
live without friendship.
family.
You talking about this one or you talking about Harry Potter? Because in Harry Potter it's a
The living world. All right? Just before Harry leaves, Harry's like, I've got to go back, haven't I? It's up to you. I've got a choice? Oh, yeah. If you wanted to go back, Harry, you'd be able to. If you wanted to go on, I think you would, let's say, board a train. Because he is, after all, kind of in this metaphysical King's Cross. Voldemort's got the Elder Wand. Yep. You want me to go back? He says, I think if you choose to return, there's a chance he may be finished for good. I cannot promise it. But I know this, Harry, you have less to fear from returning here than he does. Less to fear from returning here. That is, less to fear from dying. Okay? Than he does. And Harry looks at the thing under the chair, and Dumbledore says, do not pity the dead, Harry. That's dead. It might be whimpering, but that's dead. Okay? This is also why I think Dumbledore's wrong here. Harry is dead. He's fully dead. If somebody were to be over at his body at this point, checking his pulse, put a mirror up to the mouth for breath, there'd be nothing. He'd be dead, dead, dead. Like, this podium is dead. Pity the living. And above all, those who live without love. Who's he talking about? Pity Lord Voldemort. He's saying, identify with him, Harry. When you pity someone, what do? You're experiencing what they're experiencing. Right? You're identifying with them. You're taking on their burden, so to speak. By returning, you may ensure that fewer souls are maimed, fewer families are torn apart. If that seems to you a worthy goal, then we say goodbye for the present. In other words, I'll be seeing you again. Okay? Harry nods and sighs, and he goes back. Notice what he discovers. Voldemort had also fallen to the ground. Why?
His Horcrux was destroyed.
Why else?
Because he didn't realize that he made Harry young.
What did he kill in Harry?
It's part of his soul.
Part of whose soul? Voldemort's?
Yeah.
What else did he kill?
Himself.
When he cursed Harry and Harry died, something died in Voldemort.
Harry's blood.
That bit of Harry that was in him. He just kind of negated it. Okay? What does he think? He thinks that that bit of blood in him is going to protect him. But what did Harry do? This is kind of, if you're familiar with C.S. Lewis and Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, this is kind of like deeper magic from before the dawn of time. What did Harry do? He trumped his mother's charm. His mother died to protect Harry. Harry died to protect everybody. Okay? So, Narcissa comes up to Harry. Is Draco alive? Is he still in the castle? Harry. He's dead, my lord. What did she just do? She lied to the Dark Lord. She lied to he who must not be lied to. She lied to he who always knows when someone is telling a lie. Liar. What else?
She protected Harry.
She's protecting Harry.
I'm
She's
just surprised
protect-
that she knew that he was still alive after being cursed.
Well, she doesn't necessarily. I mean, she doesn't until
She feels his pulse or something.
she goes up to him,
His chest.
Feels his chest.
hand softer than he had been expecting, touched Harry's face, pulled back an eyelid. Notice, he's expecting her to come out, crept beneath his shirt, kind of weird, and felt his heart. He could feel her hair tickle his face. He knew that she could feel the steady pounding of life against his ribs. Is Draco alive? Is he in the castle? Yes. He felt the hand on his chest contract. Her nails pierced him. Then it was withdrawn. He's dead. Why does she pierce him with her nails? I'll just leave that. Okay? So, Voldemort carries Harry. We see Hagrid. Okay? And go up to 5 minutes ago. Page 738. They're in the Great Hall. And Harry says, you won't be killing anyone else tonight. You won't be able to kill any of them ever again. Don't you get it? I was ready to die to stop you from hurting these people, but you did not. I meant to. And that's what did it. I've done what my mother did. They're protected from you. Haven't you noticed on none of the spells you put on them are binding? You can't torture them. You can't touch them. You don't learn from your mistakes, Riddle. Do you? Yes, I dare. I know things you don't know, Tom Riddle. I know lots of important things that you don't. Want to hear some before you make another big mistake? Voldemort. Love again. Is that it? Dumbledore's favorite solution? Love, which he claimed conquered death, though love did not stop him falling from the tower. So what will stop you dying now when I strike? Just one thing. If it's not love that will save you this time, you must believe you have magic that I do not, or else a weapon more powerful than both. Harry, I believe both. You think you have magic more powerful than mine? I'd perform magic that Dumbledore has never dreamed of. Oh, he dreamed of it, but he knew more than you. Knew enough not to do what you've done. You mean he was weak. Why? Because he was too weak to seek power. I brought about the death of Albus Dumbledore. You thought you did, but you were wrong. Why? Snape was Dumbledore's man. To use Harry's language, Dumbledore's through and through. Dumbledore was already dying when Snape finished him. He says it doesn't matter. Okay? Harry finally says, before you try to kill me, I'd advise you to think about what you've done. Think and try for some remorse, Riddle. What is this? He's not expecting that. That comes from this way, way out in left field. It's your last chance. It's all you've got left. I've seen what you will be otherwise. What does he mean, I've seen what you'll be? That little thing under the chair. Notice, it's not a whole person. Here he's a whole person. Right? Resurrected, no scar, perfect eyesight. That thing?
friendly.
You dare? Yes, I dare. Why? Because Dumbledore's last plan hasn't backfired on me at all. It's backfired on you. But why does Harry dare? Pity those that live without love. What is Harry doing here? He is showing love. Okay? Harry says, Snape never defeated Dumbledore. He never beat Dumbledore. The wand chooses the wizard. The Elder Wand recognized the new master before Dumbledore died. Someone who never even laid a hand on it. The new master removed the wand from Dumbledore against his will, never realizing exactly what he had done, or that the world's most dangerous wand had given him its allegiance. The true master of the Elder Wand was Draco Malfoy. So what? Even if you're right. Potter, it makes no difference to me. You no longer have the Phoenix Wand. We duel on skill alone. And after I've killed you, I'll take care of Draco. Draco's probably, backing up in a corner somewhere. Harry, you're too late. You've missed your chance. I got there first. I overpowered Draco weeks ago. I took this wand from him. He's got Draco's wand. He doesn't have the Elder Wand. He's got Draco's wand. So it all comes down to this. Does the wand in your hand know its last master was disarmed? Because if it does, I'm the true master. Look at what happens next. A red gold glow burst suddenly across the enchanted sky. Above them, as an edge of dazzling sun appeared, Avada Kedavra, Expelliarmus, and Voldemort falls to the ground, dead. The sun rose steadily, skipping 2 paragraphs. I know it's almost 11:05. And the great hall blazed with life and light. This is like Easter Sunday, okay, in terms of its description. And what's happening? Everybody wants Harry with them. Like the mere touch of him can heal their ailments. Can it? Does Harry bring Fred back to life? Does Harry fix people who are wounded? No, he doesn't. Okay. We'll stop there. Okay, you've got the exam. It's, like I said, it's been emailed. Read the second email just with some advice, okay? There's nothing on the exam that stipulates an exact number of quotes that you need to have, but you need to have quotes. They're your evidence.
And when is that due?
Week from, Monday morning, Monday at noon. In the box on my office door or in my hands. I'll be in my office probably around 11 o'clock.